Hello and welcome to another Peakman Reviews. Today we have the Generation 1 Transformer Skids. This is the commemorative edition. There's not really any differences between this and the original release. Perhaps the missile system is a bit on the weak side in that this literally just holds the missile. However, I think that's more to do with the difference between the Japanese and the American releases. Those of you who might be able to tell, this is actually Skid's missile mounted in here. Because the missile doesn't do anything, it seems kind of pointless to put it in, so I just borrowed Sideswipes. That said, the missile launcher itself could look vaguely like a cannon, and it just seemed a bit of a waste of time to go to all the problem of unclipping a missile from the missile pack that doesn't do anything. But never mind, I digress. As a Transformer, Skids is probably one of the least ineffectual Autobots. So much so that the Marvel UK comics chuck Skids in an alternative dimension for 100 or so issues, and frankly he wasn't missed. Now they were able to do that because Skids didn't appear in the Marvel US comic at all during that period of time. So he's perhaps a little bit, I say useless, I probably mean to say unloved characters. Certainly one that never really had that much development paid to him. As for the alt mode, it's pretty unprepossessing. It's basically, what would you call it? Little family vehicle, 2 doors, maybe not much family vehicle. It's not too much to weigh around. The wheel layout's a bit odd, particularly how these stick out at the front. You kind of want to push them back in. They don't push in at all, but they just look a bit odd. That said, in terms of stability, he's one of the more stable characters, stable designs. It's got the rubber on. As I say, it actually drives around quite nicely. The wheels may stick out and look a bit silly, but because they are oversized means that they run very nicely and it's a very stable car. Okay, so transforming Skids. Pretty simple. A lot of the G1 guys are to begin with. So as you see, that just literally flips like that. Now, you can see these parts here. You open that up. Probably help show you this way because this is where his feet actually are. And there we are. So that's the feet element of Skids. Now, this is where it's a little bit odd because you see the wheels here. These do actually flip under like this, but they don't quite go level. So he's always a little bit unbalanced. He always kind of doesn't quite, because it's not level, he's always a little bit leaning forward. So that's a bit of a shame. So this is obviously his chest. Now you can see the head located in here. So we obviously need to get the head up and round. Now it's a bit tricky because you can see his head. You can if I show you in the camera. It needs to flip up like this. So you kind of need to reach into him, flip the head over like that, and then that goes back to make his head. Doors flip out like that. There's not really anywhere to put this part of him, and even the characters you see in cartoon and the toy mode struggle with that a bit. The arms flip up like this, and they flip down, but because there's a lack of a hinge socket, a lack of an elbow, or a lack of a shoulder, it's a little bit awkward. You kind of end up like that. I guess that's not too bad. If we just zoom in a little bit, it's not too bad a pose, but it's all just a little bit awkward. Now, Skids doesn't have any, well, he does have hands obviously, but he doesn't have anywhere to hold the weapons. They do rotate, so yeah, that's something, but you kind of have to put his weapons so that they attach, and basically they just clip on. If we do the same here, so you have his arm, you kind of need to try and clip them on to this larger part here, so they kind of slide into place like that. There we go. If we pop him back down, the focus goes back. Just a bit of a confused robot. I mean, ultimately, he doesn't look too bad. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing fundamentally wrong. It's just the fact that there isn't anywhere real place to put his weapons. His arms just look, I don't know, they just look weird. I suppose you could hold it like that, but they just look, really, they just look weird. and the fact that he always is leaning forward. You might be able to do that and kind of just try and lead him back a little bit. But again, because his feet, the wheels don't fully go back, he is always leaning, and actually like that looks silly. It really does. So I don't know. You're kind of left trying to see that just doesn't have a place to go. So you either put that. Yeah, I'm trying struggling to words because it just looks a bit silly. It's a bit half baked. Yeah, a bit of a half-assed way of doing it. It could look quite good, but because he's got no shoulder joints, no elbow joints, there's no real way to put his arms. And the fact that his weapons slot that way just looks a bit silly. The fact that his wheels don't go all the way back in. You know, if these went all the way back in, or at least were level, he'd be able to stand up properly. But as it is, he's always leaning forwards. You can kind of see why Marvel and Comics UK and the US left him in limbo or didn't use him for so many issues. It just feels a little bit like they go, hey, this guy looks great. And then they saw the toy and thought, what can we do with it? Oh well, maybe I'm being a bit harsh. In terms of sizes, he compares well with the Insecticon shrapnel. The reason probably with that is, you know, they are both obvious on the same location. One's a second wave transformer based on the Diaclone range, and one's also a second rate base transformer, shrapnel, but even more obviously coming from that, as you can see, even a little place for someone to sit. I don't think this flips up, but that's where they would have sat. So they're of a similar age, similar purpose. Obviously one's taller than the other, but they don't feel too silly about it. And actually Skid compares quite well as well with the Combiner Wars Warpath as well. That kind of feels about right. Warpath being a mini-bot originally, Skids isn't a mini-bot, although he's quite a small transformer. They actually feel quite well. So I think those guys go together pretty well with that. So there we are. That's Skids, the transformer that's so memorable he could be left in limbo for 100 or so issues and no one really misses him. It's a little bit unfair. He's not too bad. It just feels like he's not polished enough. Does the head move? No, that's a shame. That would have been quite nice if the head had rotated. I don't know. It's not really what you could say with the weapons. You could play about with them, try and get that to connect like that. Looks a bit better. As for that one, you can kind of get him to hold like that, so it looks a little bit better. Still very clunky. The feet, I think the feet probably annoys me the most, because it wouldn't take 5 minutes just to make the wheels go in just enough to make it level. Maybe this is a problem with the commemorative release. I don't know. Perhaps some of you could write in or leave a comment and tell me. I just feel, it's something that, you know, could have been done, and had this all been done, I feel, correctly, you would have been looking at going, actually, it's not a bad little transformer. But because it's not, you kind of ended up I've ended up talking about his faults, rather than the fact that, you know, it's a fairly nice, relatively inexpensive transformer. So never mind. As I say, it's put together quite well. Feels fairly solid. The arms don't feel brittle. Some of the guys, particularly the ones like Jazz and Prowl, the arms feel a little bit brittle, but Skids does not. Transforms well, runs along very well in car mode. That's probably his best selling point. Colour scheme's good, fairly accurate to or perhaps I should say the cartoons and the comics are fairly accurate to the toy. Just doesn't quite feel finished. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please leave any comments below, and we'll see you on the next review. Thank you. Goodbye.